Okay, so this won't actually be a psychiatrist build. Um, there is no, I don't know if you knew this, there is no psychiatrist class in the game. I just thought it would be funny to call it a psychiatrist build since we're going to be doing a lot of psychic damage using the Shadowblade weapon against enemies. It'll pretty much be a Hexblade swashbuckler multi-class build. But similar to an actual psychiatrist, we will be profiting significantly from the mental damage of others. Okay, so I will tell you a general schema for how I leveled up, or how you can level up from 1 to 12. So we'll start with level 1. So our first level at the beginning of the game, it's going to be Warlock, obviously. And the cantrips we're going to take are Booming Blade and Eldritch Blast. The subclass is Hexblade, and the spells we're taking are Expeditious Retreat and Hexblade. Or not Hexblade, Hex. So Expeditious Retreat, really useful at the beginning of the game. Essentially at level 1, you can use Dash as a bonus action, and that will allow you to do this sort of hit and run strategy, which will allow you to take out a lot of difficult encounters. It'll be really tedious, but you'll be able to do it with just one character by hitting them using your action point with Eldritch Blast, and then running away using your bonus action. They run after you, and you do the same thing. You hit them, you dash away with your bonus action, they can never catch up, and you just keep running around hitting them, and that's how you can handle a lot of otherwise difficult encounters. As far as our stats go, we're going to want to mainly focus on Charisma, Dexterity, and Constitution. So we have Charisma 17. We need to get this up to 16, so we don't need Intelligence. We don't need that. Dexterity is 16, Constitution 14. That's good. So Charisma of 17, because you can always get that to 18 using the Hag's Hair. Constitution 14, and Dexterity 16. Dexterity will be for armor, really. That's really what it's going to be for in combat. Out of combat, it's going to be for stealing stuff. And then Charisma, because we're a Hexblade, our attacks are going to be dependent on the Charisma modifier. So, we're going to want to have a high Charisma. It'll also help us out of combat with persuasion checks. Okay, so let's go to level 2. Oh, wait. Not JK. We have to do skill proficiencies. This is fine. Does not matter because we can't put it in persuasion and we can't put it in sleight of hand, which are the only things we really care about anyways. So whatever, this is fine. All right, Warlock level 2. So level 2 spells. Sure, these two. That's fine. Whatever. This is the most important, Devil's Sight. Devil's Sight will allow us to see in darkness, both magical and non-magical. Really, the only thing that matters here is the magical darkness, because our strategy is going to be based heavily on either using arrows of darkness or casting darkness, because darkness acts like a little shield. If you can see in darkness and enemies can't, they generally won't go into the darkness. And so you can just stand in there, and then your enemies will just kind of circle around you but never actually hit you. And as far as ranged attacks, enemies that can't see into magical darkness, their ranged attacks, either they won't shoot into the darkness or they will shoot, but then the attack will... It's almost like a little force field. It'll just hit the wall, the outer edge of the darkness, and just disappear. So Devil's Sight, most important. The next can either be Agonizing Blast for damage or Repelling Blast for utility. If you see enemies near the edge, you can push them off with Repelling Blast. I don't think it really matters too much. It can make an argument for either, so one of those two. Devil's Sight is a must, though. All right. Next, we go to level 3. So level 3 Warlock, we'll take Shadowblade. This is really important. Shadowblade is like the best weapon in the game now. The fact that it rolls 2 dice, or 2 die, or whatever, it's really good. And I'll essentially talk a little bit later, but Shadowblade is amazing because the fact that most of its damage is coming from die rolls rather than, using your strength modifier, your dexterity modifier. It does use a modifier, it uses your charisma modifier. But the fact that it's more dependent, like more of the damage, more percentage of the damage is coming from die rolls, just makes it so that critical hits matter a lot more, because when you land a critical hit, it's doubling your die rolls. It doesn't do anything for the modifier in terms of the damage. It only doubles the die rolls, or the dice rolls, or whatever the plural form is of dice or die. And so that makes critical hits way more impactful when you have a weapon like this. Additionally, it's going to make Savage Attacker way better too, because Savage Attacker will allow you to roll your die again as well, your dice again as well. And so Shadowblade it's just such a good weapon for critical hits and for savage attacks or Savage Attacker. So this is going to basically be our weapon for the entire game. Just remember to make it your packed weapon. As far as the packed boon, packed the blade, because we want to get an extra attack eventually. And then we can get rid of something here. I think early on in the game, well, Expeditious Retreat really doesn't matter anymore because now we can get Darkness instead, and Darkness is a way better defensive option and a way less tedious option than Expeditious Retreat, so we're getting rid of that. We're going to put Darkness in here now. Very good. All right. Level 4. I don't know. Who cares? This one. Yeah, this is always good, so sure. Misty Step. I would say Misty Step or Hold Person, but probably Misty Step. What are we going to get rid of? Nothing at this point. I think we can just keep it. It's fine. If I was going to get rid of anything, it would probably be Protection from Evil and Good, just because you're not really going to be dealing with a lot of Celestials, Elementals, Fae, or Fiends early on in the game. You've already dealt with the brains in the beginning, so you probably don't really need this. So you could get rid of this and put like Hold Person. It's up to you. I'm just gonna leave it in for now though, because I just want to go to the next level. As far as our feat, kind of like I mentioned before, Savage Attacker, really good with the Shadow Blade. So we're taking this, and then we're done. All right. Next we have level 5. Okay, so for this, Hunger of Hadar, this is not super important. So take your pick. I would choose either Hunger of Hadar, Counterspell, or Fear. I don't think it really matters, as long as you choose something that isn't bad, and these are not bad choices. So do that. Choose a not bad choice. We're gonna go with Hunger of Hadar. Our Eldritch Invocation. I don't know. Doesn't really matter anymore. We chose Repelling Blast last time, so we're gonna do Agonizing Blast this time. We're not really using Eldritch Blast that much, but it could be good in certain situations. I don't know. I don't think any of these really make a big impact with the direction that the build is going, so who cares? What are we getting rid of? We can get rid of Hex, and let's put in either Counterspell or Fear. I don't know. Just choose one. Let's just go with Counterspell. All right. So we're done with level 5. We're done with Warlock, essentially. We are never going beyond Warlock level 5. I'm sure Accursed Spectre is pretty good or whatever, but it's not as good as what we're going to be doing, so I don't care about it, and neither should you. In fact, what we're going to do now is we're going to respec, starting all over again, but with level 1 of Rogue. Okay, so once we reach character level 6, we're going to respec, because we want to be level 1. We want our first level to be a Rogue, because we want all this. We want all this stuff. But more importantly, we want our expertise and skill proficiencies that we get with a level 1 Rogue. So let me quickly fix these. Okay. And don't need that. Don't need that. Good. Okay. So our skill proficiencies, we already have Sleight of Hand because, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. We want persuasion. We don't want performance. Who cares about performance? Athletics could be good. Mostly we just want persuasion and sleight of hand. Stealth is fine. Athletics is good. Stuff that actually makes a tangible difference is usually better than stuff that is useless. So, sure. What am I putting this in? I'm just going to put it in there for now. Also, like, we're going to be respecing. This is not the first time we're going to be respecting, or not the last time we're going to be respecting, so it really doesn't matter that much. Okay, so expertise, sleight of hand, and persuasion, just so we can steal stuff and sell stuff. All right. I had proficiency in sleight of hand because I chose my background as like urchin or something. Anyways, so now that we have our 1 level in rogue, we're going back to warlock. So we're pretty much doing the same thing. It's gonna look the same. So I'm just gonna skip this actually. Okay, we're back, and I got the warlock back to where he needs to be, meaning he's level 5. Okay, so now our character is level 7. The next step is we have to make a decision. We're gonna respec again. So we reach level 6, we respect, and now the question is, do we respec again? I did. So what I mean by that is I actually respect to 4 levels in rogue, in which case I had the swashbuckler class. But you could also probably get away with doing 5 levels in warlock and then just taking 2nd level in rogue. So if you were going to do that, you get 2 attacks with the Pact Boon as a level 5 warlock. You'd also be able to cast Shadowblade with a level 3 spell slot, which would give you the ability to make it so that Shadowblade does 3d8 damage. You roll 3d8 rather than 2d8. But I didn't do that. I went the route of level 4 rogue and level 3 warlock instead. All right, so why did I do the level 4 in rogue and level 3 in warlock? So basically, rogue, the swashbuckler class it's ridiculous. Let me get to it. All right, so firstly, fancy footwork. That's crazy. Like, you can hit someone and then you can just run away from them. So that's amazing. We're taking that. Also, you can just do sneak attack as long as you don't have disadvantage, and basically you just sneak attack everyone. And we're always gonna have advantage anyways because we're gonna be in darkness and we're gonna have Shadowblade. But I just find these 2 abilities to be amazing. But then there's the level 4 abilities, which are even more amazing. So, I mean, well, they're not all amazing. I really just mean to say Dirty Trick Flick of the Wrist is really good. It's essentially an extra attack. So you can make an extra attack with a bonus action. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's debatable, like, you know, if you would want to do 4 in rogue and then 3 in warlock, or if you want to keep 5 in warlock and then 2 in rogue. I think they're both perfectly reasonable paths to choose. Honestly, I went the 4 in rogue and 3 in warlock. In retrospect, it might have been better to do 5 in warlock and 2 in rogue. You probably have better action, like, economy with that setup. But this is just how I went. I thought the Flick of the Wrist was awesome. I wanted to use it. The fact that you can basically make 2 attacks, and one of those attacks causes the enemy to drop their weapon, I thought that was great. You do also get an extra 1d6 with your sneak attack, since you have 3 levels in rogue. So, you know, there's a little bit of that too that could push you more towards the 4 levels in rogue as opposed to the, again, 5 warlock, 2 rogue when your character level 7. Again, it doesn't really matter. It's up to you which way you want to go. You're going to get 2 attacks either way. It's just that when you're with 4 levels rogue and 3 warlock, one of those extra attacks has to be made using your bonus action. And again, you know, when we are respecing, we're going to be keeping the feat Savage Attacker the entire time, because again, Savage Attacker is amazing with any setup that relies more on dice rolls than it does on flat damage, like you might get from Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master. Okay, so for level 8, we're going to respec again. And, well, we're only going to respec if you respec at level 7. So I did respec at level 7 to 4 in Rogue, or 4 in Swashbuckler, and 3 in Warlock. But if you just kept yourself as a Warlock with 5 levels in Warlock and 2 in Rogue, you wouldn't be respecing here. You would just be adding another level to Rogue. So essentially the setup would be you have 5, at level 8 you should have 5 levels in Warlock and 3 levels in Rogue. Reason being that just at level 8 with the distribution of in this multi-class, I think that there's just more advantages to having it set up that way, where you have 5 levels Warlock and 3 levels Rogue. So yeah, that's what we're doing. What am I doing here? And I also forgot to mention, if you do go the path at level 7, where you have 4 levels in Rogue and 3 levels in Warlock, you really don't lose the ability to upcast Shadowblade at level 3, because at that point you have elixirs of arcane cultivation available to you, and that includes the elixirs of arcane cultivation that create level 3 spell slots. So you just get one of those and you drink it, and then you cast the Shadowblade at level 3 using the spell slot that was created by that elixir. That was just something I forgot to mention earlier. Okay, so level 9. Level 9, we're going to go level 5 Warlock. As I said, we're never ever going to go past level 5 Warlock. And then we're going to go level 4 Rogue. So now we have, a more coherent setup. We have all the important stuff from Warlock, and we got all the important stuff from the Swashbuckler. And we also get to choose a second feat. Okay, so we already chose Savage Attacker as our first feat. The next one, we're going to choose Warcaster, just because it gives us advantage on concentration saving throws. And who knows what great concentration spells we're going to be casting that we will not want to lose. Now, the important thing about level 9 is that, in general, at least with my playthrough, is that you should be level 9 by the time you enter the Mind Flayer colony, and while you're in the Mind Flayer colony, you should level up to level 10. So you level up to level 10 while you're in the Mind Flayer colony, but you don't have the opportunity to, respec or teleport out of the Mind Flayer colony once you're in it. And simply or very importantly for the Merkle fight, you're going to start wanting proficiency with Constitution. Constitution becomes way more important. So right up until the point that you go into the Mind Flayer colony, this level 9 multi-class distribution is fine, but right before you go into the Mind Flayer colony, you're going to need to respec again, such that you have your first level in Fighter, so that way you get proficiency in heavy armor and proficiency in Constitution saving throws, because all of Merkle's attacks are Constitution saving throws, and also it's going to be really important for concentration saving throws that you are proficient with Constitution saving throws. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to respec so that I have a level 1 fighter, and then, because I'm assuming we're going to level 10 now, so I'm going to have level 1 in fighter. I'm going to have 5 in warlock, as we talked before, and then 4 in rogue. Okay, so level 11, we're going to put it into fighter, because our goal is to get to a level 3 champion, because at that point we get improved critical, and with improved critical, that reduces the critical hit threshold by 1, which is the point of this entire build. So that's where we're going. So let's do that. Oh yes, I also forgot to mention what your spells should look like at this point. So it should really look like this. I mean, it doesn't have to look like this, but you should have Shadowblade, and then everything else is less important. I think shield is important, and I think protection from evil and good is important, just because you do end up, encountering a lot of these aberrations, celestials, elementals, fae, fiends, and undead, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, this is just what my spells look like at level 5 at this point for Warlock. So yeah, going back to Fighter, gonna level up here. We get Action Surge, that's nice. And then we're gonna be done, finally. Yeah, okay. Finally done. Choose Champion, get our improved critical, and we're finally done leveling up. Okay, for what I think are like key equipment items throughout the game, I'll probably forget some, but these are the ones that stand out to me as important throughout the game. As far as headwear goes, the first important piece of headwear you'll get is the Covert Cowl. That will decrease your critical hit threshold by 1. Once it's available, you then take the Dark Justiciar helmet. That also decreases your critical hit threshold by 1, but it also has some other bonuses, like +1 to saving throws against spells and +1 to Constitution saving throws. Both of those helmets, they require you to be either lightly obscured or heavily obscured for you to get the benefit of the decreased critical hit threshold. So that's one disadvantage of them. Finally, once it's available, Servok's Horned Helmet will be the last piece of headwear that you get, because it doesn't have that disadvantage of needing to be in an obscured area for you to get the -1 to your critical hit threshold. As far as armor, I would say the first piece of really good armor you're going to get is that Yuan T Scale Mail, and then later on, once you can get it, the Armor of Agility. As far as boots, okay, these are important. So the Boots of Striding are really, really good, because they make it so that while you're concentrating on a spell, you can't be moved against your will and you can't be knocked prone. Being knocked prone is very bad, because if you are knocked prone, you automatically lose concentration on your spell. So you're going to be using that a lot. And then once it's available, you'll get the Helldusk Boots. And you can get the Helldusk Boots early on in Act 3 by stealing them from Gortash's little office in Worms Rock, the Worms Rock Fortress. I think what I did was I just took a potion of flying and a potion of invisibility, and I just snuck around his headquarters, and then I just stole the chest. I either stole it from the chest or I stole the entire chest. So I got the Helldusk Boots early on in Act 3. Gloves, again, you can just choose good gloves, but eventually you'll want to get the Flawed Helldusk Gloves. The reason being, it gives you 1d4 to your 1d4 additional fire damage, and the whole point of this build is critical hits and Savage Attacker, which relies on additional damage die. It's not like a groundbreaking concept, more damage die to make a better build, but it's what we're doing. So yeah, Helldusk Gloves or Flawed Helldusk Gloves, once that's available, I would get that. And then later on, you can get the Spellmite Gloves, and you can get that really early on in Act 3 as well, because you can pickpocket it from the Ringmaster at the Circus of the Last Days. I believe how this works is that you get a +1d8 to your spell attack rolls, but you could take a penalty as well, a -5 penalty. That -5 penalty doesn't really seem to apply with melee spell attack rolls. I haven't verified this, so it's possible I've been using the Spellmite Gloves and they haven't been doing anything for me, but that's what I was using. As far as the rings, you're going to use the Strange Conduit Ring, which just gives you an additional 1d4 die of psychic damage. At this point, or at some point, you're going to have the Resonance Stone, which gives you and people around you vulnerability to psychic damage. So that's just good, because it's just additional psychic damage. The other ring can be the Ring of Elemental Infusion, or the Shadow Cloaked Ring. Ring of Elemental Infusion is going to give you additional damage die after you use a spell. It's preferred if you're fighting in an area that's illuminated, because the alternative would be the Shadow Cloaked Ring, which requires you to be in an obscured area. If you are in an obscured area, then the Shadow Cloak Ring is probably better because I think it will add additional psychic damage. And again, enemies will have vulnerability to psychic damage, and that means they'll take double damage from the Shadow Cloak Ring. Your main hand weapon, obviously the Shadow Blade. That's going to be your main hand weapon the moment you can get it. Offhand weapon. The first important offhand weapon you'll have available to you is the Knife of the Undermountain King. Reason being, the reason we're using this is because it reduces the critical hit threshold by 1. Nearing the end game, you can switch to Bloodthirst, which you get from Orin, which is just better than the Knife of the Undermountain King. It has more bonuses when you have it in the offhand. It gives you additional armor class. It gives you like this reaction where you can, if a person misses an attack on you, you can attack them. So it's just better. But that's an end game thing, and it's not that much better. So if you don't have it, it doesn't really matter that much. Our bow, once it's available, you'll get the Darkfire Shortbow. That will just allow us to cast haste on ourselves. And then eventually in Act 3, you'll get the Deadshot, which is just another weapon that decreases the critical hit threshold by 1. So those are that's the equipment, and that's like kind of the order that I would recommend getting it. Yeah. I kind of mentioned it before, another important equipment, but it's not really equipment, you're just carrying it on your person, is that Resonance Stone that you get in the Mind Flayer colony, and that will give you and people around you vulnerability to psychic damage. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. People are going to take double damage from the Shadow Blade, so that's why it's good. I feel like the fact that this Resonance Stone exists, and the fact that Shadow Blade now exists, I feel like this quote unquote build kind of just makes itself. You put 2 and 2 together, and you get 4. So Resonance Stone, very important. Right, so the feat Savage Attacker is really good, like we said before. As long as your build is a melee, you're using melee weapons, and you're trying to stack damage die, or you're Paladin and you're Divine Smiting people, or in our case, you're using Shadow Blade, anything that's using a lot of damage die rolls for melee attacks, this is pretty much a must-have. Again, as long as you're not using something like Great Weapon Master, because Savage Attacker is not going to benefit you if you're relying on Great Weapon Master for your damage. And so the reason it's really good is because it's essentially going to increase your damage by between 25 and 30%. So here's the table that demonstrates that, and this is the formula for calculating damage. So if you want to calculate damage, the average damage of a damage die without Savage Attacker, it's just going to be 1 plus, the lowest you can roll, which is a 1, plus the highest you can roll, and then you divide by 2. And that gives you the average of all the die rolls that you can get from that one die. And that's going to be your average damage you get without Savage Attacker. It's like obviously a little bit more complicated when you have Savage Attacker, because you're rolling 2 die and you're taking the highest result. But essentially, this formula I'm showing you right here, it's a summation of the probability of a certain result from your damage roll times the result of that damage roll, and you just add all those up, and you can simplify it, or you can turn that summation into this formula, which can be a closed formula, like that thing that's like 4n squared plus 3n minus 1 blah blah over 6n. Anyways, here's the table. Here's it showing you that essentially using Savage Attacker is going to increase our damage by around 30%. All right, and now the meat and potatoes of our build, which is getting lots of critical hits. So there's 2 things that go into getting a lot of critical hits. 1 is meat and 2 is potatoes. So the meat, I guess you could say, is advantage. You want to be able to roll 2 attack die, and then choose the higher result. That's gonna increase your chance of rolling a critical hit. But you also want to decrease the number that you need to roll to get a critical hit. So obviously we have advantage from Shadow Blade. And the next thing we need to do is now again decrease that critical hit threshold. So how are we going to do that? In Act 1, early on in Act 1, we're really not going to be able to do much. It's mostly just going to come from Hexblade's Curse, which reduces the threshold by 1. Later on in Act 1, potentially later on in Act 1, you might not be able to do this in Act 1. You might end up being in Act 2 already, but you could potentially reduce it all the way down to needing a 16 or higher to get a critical hit. And that would be through Hexblade's Curse, Elixir of Viciousness, Covert Cowl, and Knife of the Undermountain King. Act 2 is pretty much the exact same thing, but now it's more. You should definitely be able to get critical hits at 16 or higher. And again, it's going to be Hexblade's Curse, Elixir of Viciousness, Covert Cowl, or the Dark Justiciar helmet, and the Knife of the Undermountain King. At Act 3, we're going to have some more equipment, and we're going to have some more bonuses that will further reduce the critical hit threshold. We're going to hit that by using the Hexblade Curse, Elixir of Viciousness, the Dark Justiciar helmet, or Sarevok's Horned helmet if we've killed him already, the Knife of the Undermountain King, the Deadshot bow, and then as a level 3 fighter, we took the Champion subclass, which is also going to reduce our critical hit threshold by 1. If you are evil, if you're a dick, and you're the Dark Urge, you can do the Most Bloody Inheritance pathway, which I think that also reduces your critical hit threshold by like 2. And so at that point, you would only need to get like a 12 or higher to roll a critical hit. So to put it in perspective, late Act 1 or Act 2, you have a 44% chance that any hit you land is going to be a critical hit. In Act 3, if you are not the Dark Urge, or if you're a good guy Dark Urge, you will have a 58% crit rate with your attacks. And then if you're an evil Dark Urge, you would have a 70% crit rate. Oh yeah, one last thing. If you know a fight's coming up, just make sure you remember to turn off all the lights in the room so that way you get the advantage from Shadowblade.